This 16-year-old boy joined a satanic cult and then claimed that demons made him go on a murder spree. Luke Whittam was raised in Pearl, Mississippi, and was the youngest of two sons. Life at home was extremely turbulent. His parents were constantly fighting in front of his two sons until his father just got up and abandoned the family. Luke's mother was rarely ever home, and when she was home, she was a strict disciplinarian. According to Luke, on one occasion when his mother caught him smoking, she forced him to chain smoke 40 smokes in a row until he got sick. There was another occasion where she forced him to eat out of the trash can because he didn't finish his dinner. Life at school was no better for Luke. In fact, it was probably worse. Due to his appearance, Luke was a target for major bullying, and for most of his life, his only friend was his puppy Sparkles. The highlight of his school experience was a very short relationship he actually had with another student named Christina Menifee. Christina was new to their school and she was such a sweetheart. She actually only gave Luke a chance because she realized that he didn't have any other friends. Luke said that he loved Christina more than anyone or anything in his entire life, and that this was the first time in his entire life that he cared for someone that also cared for him back. But Christina said that Luke was actually very controlling and that he didn't want her to be friends with anyone but him. Also, that Luke's mother was oddly possessive over him and would actually join them for all of their dates. So after about 3 weeks of dating, Christina broke up with Luke, and this absolutely destroyed him. Luke spent the next handful of months in a very dark, lonely place until he became friends with Grant Boyette. Grant was 2 years older than Luke and was raised very religious until he turned to Satanism. Grant became the leader of a group of outcasts at their high school in like a satanic cult-esque group of teenage boys. Grant recruited Luke into this group and actually told Luke that Satan had hand-chosen him. And to prove his powers and like the power of Satan, allegedly Grant put a spell on a boy at their school, and the next day that boy actually got hit by a car and died. And after this, Luke was a true and dedicated believer of this group, and he fully looked up to and followed Grant. And this was actually the first time in his entire life that Luke had a group of friends. This group that Luke joined, that Grant was the leader of, really centered violence and revenge and murder. And at one point, Luke, and I don't know why Luke did this, but in a very brutal and horrific way, killed his puppy Sparkles, who at one point was his only friend. And in extreme gruesome detail, he actually wrote about the entire thing in his journal, which is online, but I do not recommend you reading it. And as this group became more and more disturbing and dangerous and violent, a lot of the boys actually started leaving the group. There was one boy that left the group because Luke and Grant was trying to convince him to murder his dad because his dad gave him a curfew. That boy actually ended up reporting to the police that his friends had become like really dangerous and he was scared of what they might do, but the police just ignored him. And by fall of 1997, Luke, Grant, and this group of boys were planning for Luke to commit a mass murder at their high school, specifically targeting Luke's ex-girlfriend Christina. And on September 30th, 1997, after a big fight with his mom, Luke actually called one of the boys from the group and told him that the next morning he was going to murder his mom. And the next morning, October 1st, 1997, after Luke's mother, Marianne, woke up, her 16-year-old son, Luke, snuck up behind her with a baseball bat and hit her over and over again. He then used a blade on her 17 times, which was tragically fatal, and this was just full of rage. And that friend that Luke spoke to the night before actually ended up calling him to ask him if he went through with it. And Luke said, yeah, I just killed my mom. And still, this boy didn't report this to the police. And if he did, he might have been able to stop what happened next. A few hours later, Luke got in his mom's car and drove to the school. 16-year-old Luke made it to Pearl High School with a weapon. It was 1997, 2 years before Columbine, so the crime that Luke was about to commit was still extremely rare, which we know unfortunately is not the case today in this country. Luke saw himself as this forever victim. He was being mistreated at home, he was being bullied at school, his girlfriend, it was like the one good thing in his life, broke up with him. He thought that the world did him so wrong, and that he was about to fight back. So at 8:06 a.m. at Pearl High School, he began his attack. Luke walked straight up to his ex-girlfriend, 16-year-old Christina Menifee, and at point-blank range shot her twice, ending her life. And this was actually exactly 1 year to the day that Christina broke up with Luke. Coincidence? I don't think so. Luke then shot and killed the girl that was standing next to Christina, which was 17-year-old Lydia Dew. Luke later said that he actually really liked Lydia and that her older sister was also really nice to him and would actually give him rides to school. Luke just opened fire randomly after this and shot and injured 7 other people before getting back in his mother's car and trying to drive away. The plan was actually for him to go to the junior high school and the elementary school to commit the same kind of crime. But the assistant principal actually went after Luke and in his car kind of drove Luke off the road, got him on the ground until the police could show up to arrest Luke. Luke made a full confession, but at his trial pled not guilty by reason of insanity. He claimed that he had been seeing demons for months and that demons made him do it. His defense also put a lot of the blame on Grant and this group that Luke joined, and saying that Grant manipulated Luke and that Grant drove Luke to kill. Grant and 4 of these other boys were actually arrested and were charged with conspiracy. The other boys' charges were eventually dropped, and one of them was actually the boy that tried to report to the police that Grant and Luke were extremely dangerous and was ignored. Grant was adamant that none of what he said to Luke was ever actually serious and that it was all just pretend. They were really into Dungeons and Dragons, so that was part of his defense. Do you believe him? Let me know in the comments. But eventually he did plead guilty to conspiracy and got a pretty lenient punishment, if you ask me. All Grant had to do was join this little program, and then he was on parole for 5 years. Today he's out free and he's a husband and a father, even though, in my opinion, he planned this crime with Luke. Luke was found guilty on all charges for killing his mother. He was given life in prison for the shooting. He was given 2 life sentences and 7 20-year sentences. His brother and father never once went to a day of his trial, and since he's been in jail, reportedly have only visited him once or twice in prison. Luke says that God has forgiven him, so he used to feel remorse, but now he doesn't feel bad anymore because God forgave him. And in 2010, he actually made a request for the governor asking for clemency. He was rejected. He will actually be eligible for parole in 2046, so in about 20 years, and if he is released, which I don't think he will be 65 years old. What do we think? I know this was really intense. I don't know if it will be controversial. I feel like I know for the most part where the comments are going to be, but let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments. But while you are there, please remember to be respectful to the victims. You don't know who could be in the comments. Someone that loved these people that lost their lives could be there. So please just be respectful in the comments. But while you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to everyone that reached out and commented asking me to cover this case. And I will see all of you in my next video. Please, please, please be a good person to your fellow person.